how do you know how far to stand from the golf ball with your driver, with a mid-iron like a 7-iron, and with a wedge? Now, often, many of us get it near enough right with driver and mid-irons, but this really affects what we do with the short iron. So let's start with the driver. This is how I go through the routine of how far to stand from the golf ball. I get people to do this every single time they come for a lesson. So you're going to get your feet just wide of shoulder width apart. Start with your legs really straight. Grip your golf club, so sole of the club's pointing to the sky. Lower it now until it runs parallel to the ground. All I want you to do now is tilt forwards from your hips until the club hits the ground. Slightly bend the knees. So I've not actually addressed the golf ball or done anything. This is the perfect distance. I'm down the line, I've got my armpits over my toes, I've got the middle of the hip running through the middle of my foot. All I have to do now is shuffle into the driver. Now, for many people, this is going to feel probably too far away or potentially too close for some people that are used to stretching out. But I love the fact that you address it in that same routine and then you shuffle in to the golf ball, because you're not orientating your setup around the ball, you're doing it subjectively off it. Tilt forwards from the hips, hits the ground. My hands are dangling underneath my chin. They're not on an angle like so. They're not on a decline angle. They're hanging down on a slight angle towards the golf ball underneath my chin. Keep the same angles, shuffle it in. That is a perfect distance to stand from the golf ball. So let's crack this one away. Oh, that was smoked. And actually that felt a little bit uncomfortable for me, so it shows that I've been getting potentially the wrong distance from the golf ball. So it's easily done. So let's look at it this way now. We're going to leave the driver set up there and we're going to put the 7-iron slightly inside it. So you can see here the angle of that shaft is so different. This one's a lot flatter with the driver, this one's a little bit steeper with the 7-iron. So this shows that you're going to have to stand a little bit closer to it. But I can assure you, if you go through that same routine, remember guys, stick with me to the end here, because if you apply that same routine to that pitching or that short chip shot, you're going to fail. It's not going to work for you. So start with those legs straight. Sole the club to the sky, tilt forwards until the shaft runs parallel to the ground. Keep those legs straight, tilt forwards until the club hits the ground, slightly bend the knees, shuffle into the golf ball. So you can see, relative to where I was with driver, I am much closer to it, but the points are the same. My armpits are over my toes, my middle of the hip is to the middle of the foot. I'm in that correct position. Now this is massive. All of us in the modern golf swing are wanting to be more athletic, are wanting to be more rotational through the golf ball, so we've got to stand to it correctly. This is your foolproof method to doing that. Right, let's set this one away and get on to that short shot as well. Oh, nice. Tell you what, I'm actually playing a Pro-Am this week. I've not played a Pro-Am in a long time, obviously due to COVID and everything like that. A little bit nervous, actually better do some practice. Okay, on to the final part, the wedge. So if we bring all three clubs in here, and this is really, really good to see. And I bring driver in. If we place them all behind each other, you can see how, to get the sole of the clubs lying flat on the ground, how the angles slightly vary. So the flatter the club, the further we're going to swing, the further we're going to stand away from it, and the more around the body it will swing. We go into 7-iron, get a little bit closer to it, and then with pitching wedge, or my 50 degree, you can see how we've got to get closer to it again. Now, for me, when we get down into the pitching clubs, this is where there becomes a real difference. If I took that same process of sole to the sky, lower it, tilt forwards from the hips, yes, I have got the perfect distance. Now, if I was hitting a full pitching wedge, this would be absolutely perfect. If I was looking for that shorter shot, so that maybe 3/4 swing or half swing, I'm going to get lost here. If I've stood too far away from it relative to the length of shot, the club is going to get stuck behind me and going to get pulled behind me. So if I'm looking for a half shot with my pitching wedge, or even with an iron, I want you to get a little bit closer to it. I want you to open up your lower half, and this is going to help the club fall on the ball in front of you, as opposed to getting stuck behind and having to scoop. So scoot a little bit closer to it, shaft work's a little bit steeper. This really helps you move the club more on balance, more in the correct speed. You're not fighting it in that downswing. So it's a really good analogy that if I said the distance you stand from the golf ball gets further away the longer you want to hit it. So the longer the club, the further you get from the golf ball. Work through that full routine, those checkpoints, armpits over the toes. So if I grab all these three here, and you can really see the difference of how you stand to the golf ball, it's all totally different. You do want to get a little bit further away with the longer clubs than you do the shorter clubs, and that has to work through that routine. It's not working away and just moving the hands away, it's armpits still hanging over the toes, and you notice the angle of my lead arm there. It's not directly straight under, it's not too much of an angle in front of me, it's hanging down just underneath my chin, and that stays constant whether I'm hitting a full shot with a driver, hitting a full shot with a 7-iron, or a full shot with a pitching wedge. Remember, it only changes when we hit those shorter shots. I love it when you comment on the videos because it gives me a perfect opportunity to address your problem. So the one I want to get into is from Daryl Rutledge, and he said, Alex, I find it hard to see if my club face is square at address with my driver and with my irons. I just can't see it. So what I've done here for you, Daryl, is a nice little cheat, and by the way, that's a driver video which is really old, and I'll leave the link to it just up here. I do look a little bit younger, maybe not as much facial hair, and some of you maybe not even so I've got any now, but anyway. So what I've got down here on the floor, if we just zoom into this, you can see that I've got that red line there. What I'm looking for you to do with the driver is get the top edge of your driver at 90 degrees to that line. So on the tee, put that line down and it'll give you a real good sense of what you're trying to do. With an iron off the deck, if we stay zoomed in here, put the ball down, excuse the dirty club face, just hit one before. Again, if we use the line, I know sometimes that won't be able to happen because it's on the fairway, but we're looking to create a line all the way to our target and use the leading edge to create a 90-degree angle. That's that bottom edge of the golf club, and some of them, like my Cobras, have a little nice white line on there. Guys, thank you so much for all the comments. If you did enjoy this video, please do hit that thumbs up button. You guys are absolutely amazing. See you tomorrow for more content on Alex Elliott Golf.